The last ISP down in Chile, I think at a workshop like this, Wences Casares from Patagon made the comment or suggestion to people who are raising money that they should look for the dumbest money possible. And I think what he meant there is he didn't really believe or put a lot of value in terms of the strategic value add that any institutional investor brings to the table. And so I'm interested with Simon and Veronica had seen if
because we're dumb money?
No, not dumb. But if you guys have seen that the strategic, A round and B round investors have really facilitated exits, or is the experience, I think, a little bit more like Mariano's, where the exits have been facilitated by the entrepreneurs themselves?
I think that an exit is very hard to make if the entrepreneur is not involved or engaged in doing it. For private equity and venture capital anywhere, I mean, the guy who's running it and who knows the company best should be somebody who's willing and engaged in doing it. That otherwise, the investor is in trouble. In terms of value add, I think that that's something that you see. I mean, each investor has a different strategy. And so typically, if it's a guy who, always is buying control and, as he goes into the company, he's always putting in a CFO or doing certain things, it all depends on what they sign and what type of controls the investor has. But typically, that has a really broad range. And I can say that at least so you have investors who, you wouldn't call it dumb money. I think some investors, for reasons that, either because they're owned by a bank or whatever, they can't really have control, so it's very hard for them to interfere. So they look for companies that have a different profile. But talking specifically about VC, in my experience, it makes a huge difference when you want to get the deal for you and you're competing with somebody else, if you can really prove your value add. And normally what I do personally is, in many cases, I start helping the company or getting involved with the company prior to doing an investment. And that helps me evaluate if they are, if they respond well to following up on introductions, following up on certain advice. So I'll give you an example. I just signed an investment this week with a company that is in the payment space for for electronic transactions in Brazil. And I introduced them to like 4 or 5 different players. 2 were clients, 2 were potential partners, and then this other company. And they were really good at following up. With one of them, they signed something with the other. So you could see the progress. I could evaluate that, they were taking advantage of that, and they saw a huge amount of value in us. And in fact, what was more interesting is that they had an offer with twice the valuation, and they took half the valuation for us to buy into the company. So that is very significant. They said, in this specific case, the other offer was to buy control. We were not buying control, but we did get all our sort of negative control clauses in the contract. But in fact, it took them a while, but they said, this is much more value add. This is what we really need. We're not, yes, we want the money, but we think this is going to grow so much more. And so they took, what they considered the smarter or value add capital. So,
And Simon, in terms of...
And so, sorry, just to complete that, for Wences to say that, he wouldn't say it to me, right? Because I helped build his company in Brazil. But I think that it also depends a lot on the profile of the entrepreneur. And I think that if you know exactly what you want, and you need just capital, then yes, take dumb money, take who pays more. But for a lot of companies, they need a specific type of help, so it's much better to target the investor that fits with you better.
And I guess, Simon, in terms of that strategic investor facilitating the exit, do you see that? No?
I can't remember an example of that really, because it's really up to the entrepreneur and up to sort of like the lead VCs to do that. Strategic investors normally are, sort of quiet money or dumb money in the sense that they're not really doing too much. But if given the chance, I would never take dumb money. So I guess I would, disagree with Wences in that regard, because what you want. So a couple things. The people who've had the misfortune of hearing me talk and some of the other things today have heard a lot of sort of negative comments about the challenges that we face right now in this current phase. One of the positives that we have in this current phase is something that Veronica just alluded to, and that is in the US, it's very common for them to make a decision in a week based on 1 or 2 meetings, okay? One of the great things about Latin America is that our process takes a little bit longer. In my case, our process takes too long. But in some funds, the process takes a decent amount. And why is that a better thing? Because the process of namorando or dating is a double-sided thing. So you get to know the VC, and the VC gets to know you, and you get to see what this person's like and figure out, okay, I don't like this guy, or I like this guy, or this woman's really smart and can add a lot of value, or, this person isn't going to work. So, and why is that so important? Because in any startup or growth phase company, you're going to have so many, high highs and low lows, that it's very difficult to be in a stressful time with people who you don't have trust in. And why is that particularly important?